Burn my Cosmo! I need a miracle!
Pegasus, Music!
Bryson, you're the voice of Seiya in the US version of Knights of the Zodiac and Saint Seiya. Now, I know that you've been involved with other anime franchises, right? You're involved in Aquí, you're also involved in Attack on Titan, which is amazing.
Yes.
But as the main character for Saint Seiya, how was your experience recording the titular character?
Honestly, I had a great time. I knew that going into it, it was one of those classic series from Toei, and I knew that there was a lot of expectation because the show had been around for such a long time. They had like multiple rounds of auditions too, and it was really intense because they were like, "Oh, we've got notes for you this time," and I think I went through like 3 rounds of auditions, and then eventually, this was back in 2017 because that's when we auditioned and recorded the first season of the reboot. And we did a table read for I think the second episode, because the first episode didn't have much more than like young Seiya and flashbacks and stuff. But we did a table read for episode 2. And everybody's in the lobby and they were like, all right, I got the scripts and everything. And I think a lot of them had already been told who they were playing, but I hadn't been told who I was playing. All I knew is that I had auditioned. Yeah, I had auditioned for, say, I think 3 rounds and then maybe a couple of others for a couple of rounds. So I wasn't given any confirmation like, hey, you're cast as Seiya, until I got to this table read and I asked the producer and I was like, hey, just so I know what I'm going into, like, who am I reading for again? He goes, you're Seiya. And I was like, what? Oh, okay. So that was a fun, just like, introduction to getting to be Seiya. And I know he's such an iconic character, so I knew there was some pretty big shoes to fill.
There definitely was. And so when you were doing the casting for the role or for a role in the show, were you aware of what the anime was, of what Saint Seiya, of its legacy, you could say?
I was more so aware of its legacy and its historic value to anime. I had never seen the show before because I think by the time we were working on casting for this, the only versions of the show that were available, I think, was some of the other spin-offs and offshoots of the show. But I don't think that there was a way for me to watch the original series in any capacity. So I wasn't familiar with any of the like story beats or any of the characters quite so much further than their like character designs and stuff. And I thought that they always looked really, really cool. But I love that like a lot of that stuff has become a lot more accessible over the past few years, with both this reboot and the original series being available to watch.
Right, which is something that I wanted to ask you. Well, for me, honestly, it's the fact that your adaptation of Seiya and both the CGI and the classic anime that you also worked on, which I'm going to ask you a little bit later. It means a lot, right? Because my kid, right, he's been growing up in the United States, right, and your version is actually the version of Seiya that he knows, and before.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing. Actually, he actually loves it. And before that, we would only watch it in Japanese, right? He was only about 5, so maybe he wasn't supposed to watch it anyways because it's super violent. But
the older one a little bit more so than the new one. Yeah.
Oh, the new one, not violent whatsoever. And I have a question about that as well. But yeah, your version it's super awesome, and I really appreciate the fact that that they made the whole show, right? Because before there had only been up to I think 40 episodes or maybe 60 that had been recorded from the original show, which is over 100, right?
Yeah.
Now, so you hadn't seen about Saint Seiya, but you're about 30, right? I think
I'm gonna be 30 in August. Yeah.
Oh, almost happy birthday, man.
Oh, thank you.
So we're almost about the same age. So Saint Seiya actually did come out a little bit in Cartoon Network when we were a little bit younger. But it was obviously not a hit. Now, my question is, why do you think that Saint Seiya being such a shonen anime, it never was a hit in the US? What do you think that is?
Well, I can't speculate too much on that myself, just because, for one thing, you mentioned it being on Cartoon Network around the time that we were younger. I didn't have cable growing up, and so like I only ever got whatever came on the local channels, and I think that that may have had an impact on like other kids like myself who didn't have local channel cartoons. Like Pokemon got huge off of being on like local channels. I think like Power Rangers was on local channels. Like a lot of the shows that became hits were also available to non-cable families. And I know that there's definitely shows like Dragon Ball Z that blew up and was almost exclusively on cable channels.
Right.
And I think the only thing I can think that might have affected its chances in the States may have been some of the censorship decisions that they made early on. But I can't speak for Toei or any of the original adaptation teams in what kind of compromises they had to make during those early years. I do think that it also had to do a little bit with the timing that they had released it, because I think Saint Seiya is technically older than Dragon Ball Z over in Japan, but they waited, I think, a solid maybe decade after DBZ came in the States to release this stateside. And I think by that time it was already like late 90s, early 2000s. And so like a show that was animated in the 80s and obviously looks like it was animated in the 80s might have affected some of the reception from families and kids and stuff like that. But again, this is all just my own personal speculation. I can't really speak too much to market factors when I was 10 years old.
Yeah, well, I think you're right. Yeah, I wouldn't either. But I actually happen to believe that you're right. Right. I think that the animation was a little bit old for the time. Right. So it came too late. Basically, that's what I think. And as far as the show is concerned, when were you Seiya? Were you meant to be Seiya for both the 2D version and the CGI? Was that always the plan?
It wasn't actually. So we had done the casting and recording for the entire first season of the CGI reboot, and I think we were gearing up to start working on season 2 when the producer for the reboot came up to me and he said, "Hey, just so you know, they're looking to do a redub of the original series, and they want the new cast for it." And I was like, "Oh, that's exciting!" And then it came around, and it was like a never-ending treadmill. I was having recording sessions because, like you said, we did all 114 episodes, and we did that in like less than a year. And so like it was just like nonstop recording for a handful of months, which any actor will tell you is a pretty good source of reliable income for a while. But it was very like intense, especially with how like aggressive some of this show can be, like in terms of just like constant fightings. And I always like to joke that half of Seiya-centric episodes tend to be him getting beat up for 90% of the episode and then like pulling it out at the end. So that was definitely a rough few months vocally, but it was a lot of fun. And honestly, I wish I could go back to it again because it's just a lot of fun. The action stuff is some of the stuff that I enjoy doing the most.
Yeah. No, and you know what? I think you're right. Most of the time, Seiya, that's like the essence of the franchise. Seiya getting beaten up and then getting back up to keep on fighting, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Which it's something that I myself I happen to really like. Now, so you weren't aware at first that that you were going to be both versions of Seiya. That came after. Now, did the whole cast come back, or was it just you that played both versions of the characters?
So, as far as I'm aware, the entire cast from the CGI reboot is the cast of the 2D version as well. So, like all of the Bronze Knights and all of the Gold Knights are the same. I think the only differentiating factor would be Shun in the 2D version being played by my good friend Blake Jackson, instead of Lucy Christian, who plays Sean in the 3D reboot. And that's just a matter of the fact that they did a gender swap when they rebooted it into the CGI. And as far as I know, outside of that, pretty much everybody in the 2D Saint Seiya is the same cast as the 3D one.
Your friend must have been like, they're taking the character away from me. How is this fair, man?
well, because of the way that it happened backwards, Lucy was cast as Sean beforehand, and then later was recast whenever Shun went back to being a guy. And so Lucy, I love her. She's amazing. She's an amazing actress, one of my favorites in the business. But I feel like she's got a lot bigger fish to fry with One Piece and My Hero and all that stuff. So I wouldn't be surprised if she would have just been like, "Oh, that's okay. Good for him."
Yeah, like I got bigger characters, right? More
Well,
popular franchises.
I didn't mean to imply it that way. I'm sorry.
No, it's
That's
fine,
not what I
man.
meant. That's not what I meant.
I mean, it's probably true though. I mean, those are bigger franchises, at least in the states, than Saint Seiya. That's just a fact. Now, as far as playing both versions of Seiya, because well, both tones, like we were talking about, one is more violent than the other, are different. Did you have a different approach to the way you played the character in both adaptations?
I feel like I kind of approach them about the same way. I know for the 2D one, there's a little bit of an 80s kind of cheesiness to it that some of the directors would sometimes want to like kind of throw back in there just because the animation would call for it or something like that. So I feel like if there is any difference between the two, I feel like in the CGI one, I tried to make him feel a bit more grounded, with the comedic moments still being there, but not quite as frequent as they were in the original series. And then in the original series, allowing ourselves to just kind of lean into that sort of like 80s cheese to it and have fun with it.
Which there's some of, yeah, especially at the
Yeah.
beginning of the series. Yeah.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
Yeah, I happen to really like that, but they stopped doing that later on.
Mm.
Was there a specific moment while recording, let's say the original series, that you liked the most? Because you recorded, like I said, like you were saying, a whole year, right?
Yeah.
Was there a specific moment or arc that you find more memorable?
I really liked the moments with Shina and Cassios, like later on in the Gold Knight arcs. I think it was in the Gold Knight arcs. There was so much of this happening that my brain gets all mixed together. But like I've always loved in shows and in movies whenever like a character starts off as like a villain or like a rival that you're not really friends with or anything like that, and then later on in the series they come around to like joining your cause, either initially reluctantly, but then eventually they're kind of like, no, yeah, we believe in this guy. And so I always loved the scenes in the later portions of the series when Shina and Cassios start to come around to Seiya and his group of friends.
Yeah, which honestly, that happens a lot. I call it the Vegeta effect, but that
Mhm.
happens a lot in anime, and in
Yeah,
Saint
yeah.
Seiya, it's all over the place.
Hmm.
Besides Seiya itself, obviously, because I guess he's your favorite, but besides Seiya, is there another character that you care the most about?
So there's a couple of characters that I really love being able to play. Most recently, I was able to revisit Haikyuu, which is the volleyball
Right.
sports anime,
Yeah.
and played Shoyo Hinata in that for the movie The Dumpster Battle, now in theaters right now. If that's coming out this Saturday, it's still running. And then my very first lead role that feels almost kind of similar to Seiya in that he's an action shonen protagonist, but Belle Cornell from Is It Wrong to Try to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon
Okay.
was my very first lead role that I got to play, and I feel like I've always had a soft spot for him because his character arc, he starts off like as a rookie adventurer, knowing what he's doing, but like still kind of learning the ropes and working to improve himself. And I feel like that's exactly where I was when I was cast as him. And they keep making new seasons of it, and it's always felt like he's grown alongside me over the years. So those are a couple that I've got a soft spot for.
How long have you been working on dubbing?
Since 2015. So
Oh, quite a while.
my very first shows, I was just doing some extra voices in Walla, as well as a few just like one-off, like unnamed bits and stuff like that. And I think I got cast in the end of 2016, and then the show released early 2017 for Is It Wrong to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon, Danmachi for short. And then Saint Seiya was cast, I think, in the summer of 2017, so a few months
Okay.
after Danmachi had been released. And I think, based on that timeline, I think I was cast as Seiya and as Hinata around the same time, actually, now that I think back on it. Because Haikyuu we started recording around 2017 as well.
By the way, that movie, the movie that we were plugging right now,
Oh, yeah?
I was about to watch it just yesterday. I was with my kid at the mall, and
Oh yeah.
we were gonna watch it. I really want to watch it. I really want to
Oh,
see it.
definitely check it out. If you've never even seen Haikyuu the series, or if you've only seen part of it, like it's definitely one of those that's very self-contained. Obviously, you're gonna catch a lot more if you have seen the series and
Right.
you're more familiar with the characters. But I've seen it with 3 different groups now, and in every group, I've had somebody say like, "Oh well, I'd never seen the show, but it made me want to check out the show, but I could still follow it fine." So I still recommend it, even if it's something that you've only kind of sort of seen.
I've seen episodes of the anime, and it looks really fun. I really like
Hmm.
it, and I'm really looking forward to watching the movie.
Yeah.
Um,
Thank you.
yeah, I'm sure you're gonna do a great job. I actually believe that you're a great Seiya,
Oh, thanks.
and your work is pretty amazing, man. Seriously.
Thank
Um,
you.
Now you constantly on social media, you post that you go to conventions, right, to events
Mhm.
and such. I haven't seen that you actually came to San Diego, right?
No, I haven't
Which
yet, but I'd love
hopefully
to.
one day, right? But
Yeah.
do you ever run into people that actually reach out to you because of Saint Seiya? Is that something that has happened?
So conventions, I tend to book, or at least for a while, I've been booking through an agent, and recently I've been trying to pursue a lot of options. I've been trying to pursue a lot of opportunities directly as well over the past few months. And I haven't had anybody specifically be like, "Oh, we want you just for Seiya," or "We want you just for this or that." Typically with conventions, approaching actors, they tend to like us for the plurality of roles that we've had. So a ton of conventions, they try to look for people who have a variety in their resume. Sometimes like they'll be like, oh well, this guy's obviously gonna come with us because he's, for example, like Bryce from Attack on Titan. He's got a lot of huge names under his name, but I could easily see a show being like, oh well, we'll get Aaron from Attack on Titan because it's Aaron from Attack on Titan or something like that. But I feel like I tend to fall into the pocket where conventions tend to reach out to me because of the variety of my resume, as opposed to any one particular lead, if that makes sense.
But what about the
Mhm.
fans while inside the
Oh yeah.
convention?
Oh, for sure, for sure. Fans have come up to me being like, "Oh yeah, we came for you just because we love Seiya," and they'll have me sign like a bunch of like vintage stuff. And sometimes they'll be like, "Yeah, I watched you when I was like a kid," and it's somebody who's like older than I am, and I'm like, you do know I'm like the new Seiya, right?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, I know it, I know. I just meant like I've been watching the show since I was little," and I was like, okay. I think I have had some people mistakenly think that I am one of the original like dubs from like 2000 or something, and I always have
Yeah.
to be like, "Wait, no, I'm the new one."
You're like, how old do I look, man? Come on.
Yeah, exactly, right. I thought I looked pretty young, but
It definitely destroys our self confidence, man.
I've already started to get a lot of the even for just Haikyuu being like, "Oh man, I watched Haikyuu when I was a kid." And I was like, "What do you mean when you were a kid? You look like you're 15, 16 now."
Yeah, man. That I'm sure that does happen.
Hmm.
Um, as far as when you started doing the job as Seiya, always talking about
Hmm.
Seiya, right?
Yes.
Did you have any input from Toei or anything like that?
So I don't know how much I can speak to the behind the scenes of it, other than the fact that for the CGI one, we actually had producers from Japan sit in on a few of the sessions and give little bits of feedback early on to be like, well, maybe point it more in this direction or more in this direction kind of thing. Just because I think for the reboot they were trying to get it to appeal more to the West, and so they
Right.
wanted to like, I guess, have a little bit of a hand in making the characters more in line with the vision that they had for this for the reboot in particular. For the 2D one, we just kind of did with the director and the engineer like normal, and I think that they would send us feedback whenever they sent off the episodes to get like final reviewed or something like that. But during the CGI reboot, we actually had some of the we had a few representatives from Toei there, like in the booth with us and giving us notes and feedback and stuff like that while we worked on it.
Okay, that's
Hmm.
that's actually super interesting.
Hmm.
Now, as far as the CGI one, as we speak right now, in 3 days, maybe
Hmm.
4 days, the third season is about to end. Right, the final
Hmm.
episode is actually about to come out this coming Monday. Um, how has your experience been recording for that show, and are you gonna miss it?
I'm definitely gonna miss it. The experience, as I've probably, or at least tried to imply at this up to this point, but like the experience has been amazing. especially with how different it was working on this show versus like typical anime. Because with most anime, we tend to dub finished animation, and we can try to fit our performances into something that like fits what's already been in front of us. But for this, we actually recorded to animatics and like storyboards that are timed out.
Oh,
and
wow.
so we had a lot more. Exactly. Yeah. We had a lot more freedom to just sort of say the lines as naturally as we can, as long as it fits within the time allotted to us for the storyboard and the timing of the episode. But we didn't have to worry quite as much about, oh, we got to make sure that we pause on this word so that it like fits the mouth flap because they animated it a certain way. Because the CGI one was actually animated to our performances as opposed to the Japanese ones. So if you'll notice watching the 3D one that their mouth movements actually match the English track, not the Japanese or the Spanish. And so, or I don't know if there's a Spanish one as far
There
as
is. Yeah,
there is. Okay.
Yeah.
Just wasn't sure. And I forgot what I was gonna say. It was really cool. And then after we would record to the storyboards, they would have a little GoPro camera in front of us to like have us listen on the headphones back to the takes that they chose, so that we can like hear them and then repeat them, but then like say it to the camera so that their animators could see like the mouth shapes and stuff like that for like animation purposes and everything. And that was a really neat little additional factor.
That is actually super cool. I never heard of that before. That's so awesome.
It's not quite face capture or like motion capture or anything like that. It was literally just so they could see like what our mouth shapes look like whenever we speak. I guess in case they need to reference like, oh, what does this like word look like physically? But it's probably the closest I've done to motion capture or face capture in my career so far. Yeah, so far. so far, yeah.
Now, these last two seasons, you could say two seasons. I don't know. The third season I just counted as second season part 2, honestly. But these last two seasons, the reception for them has been pretty great from what I've read online, right? And from what I've heard from people. Do people ever tell you or ask you if you're going to continue the show, if there's going to be more to come?
I have been asked that before, but unfortunately I don't have any updates to give them in that regard. It would just be a matter of if it did well enough for Toei to be like, yeah, it seems like reception's been really picking up these last couple of seasons, and deciding to continue on with it. But as far as anything past season 3, I've not been made aware of anything going forward personally.
Okay, yeah, okay. And I'm assuming it would be the same thing for the 2D one, right? Because the anime did continue, right? There's more arcs going forward.
Yes, and I'm aware that there's more arcs and everything like that. It's just a matter of them deciding whether or not to continue animating those arcs as well. But that's completely above me, unfortunately.
All right, so quick questions, because we just have a few minutes left. But
Sure.
Quick questions. Other than Seiya, which character from Saint Seiya is your favorite?
Ooh, I really love. I feel like I already kind of. This is a little bit of a cop out because it was part of my last answer, but I really liked China as a character.
China.
And yeah. She's got that rough and tumble, like, I hate this guy, but then like comes around to him later on, and like I said, I love those kinds of characters. To do short answer long. A few shout outs of characters that I also really love is Nero / Phoenix Iki. I like his backstory with Shun / Sean and just their whole dynamic. And as well as Magnus. Magnus is really cool.
Do you rather call them by the names in the CGI one or the classic 2D one?
I think it depends. I like the name Magnus, just because I think that's a cool name. I know it's Hyoga in the original 80s, but I like Shiryu so much better than Long.
Right?
Like,
it sounds so much better, man.
Shiryu, it's so cool. And I can't really say what made them decide to use the Americanized names for the reboot versus the original. I know for the original they were just use the original names for the most part. So I don't know what made them decide that or not, but I like some from a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B.
It's a mix and match kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And how about this? Last question. When you refer to Seiya, when you're out and about, right, about the character, do you call them Pegasus, the knight, or saint?
Ooh, I kind of use them interchangeably, honestly. But I'll default to Saint just because I know Saint Seiya is the title of the show,
Right.
and so I'll usually be like, I play Pegasus Seiya. I usually don't even refer to knights or saints very much. I guess I do say knights a little bit more often whenever I refer to like gold knights or gold saints.
Right.
But I think it just depends on which context in which I'm talking to like a fan discussing it. So like if they're more familiar with the reboot, I might refer to things more as armor and knights, as opposed to if they tell me they're more familiar with the old one, I might refer to things more as like cloth or saints and stuff like that, if that makes sense.
It does make sense, and don't get me wrong. In Spanish, we interchange them all the time as well.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's the same thing, man. Cloth,
Yeah.
armor, it's the same thing. Well, Bryson, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you coming over and having this conversation, to getting your take about Knights of the Zodiac, Saint Seiya, and mostly because I love the job that you've done so far, and I hope you keep on doing, man.
Well, thank you so much, and thanks for reaching out. I really appreciate it, and yeah, thank you so much.
Where can people find you, man?
I'm at Baugus Bryson on pretty much everything: Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Twitter's. It's literally just last name, first name. I don't know why I decided that when I was like 12 or 13 or something, but it's just at Baugus Bryson, and yeah, I'll be updating on all those things with stuff to come.
Perfect, man. Thank you so much, and man, I hope you have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
See you. Bye.
Oh, bump the mic. Burn your Cosmo, Pegasus, real Seiken!